Welcome to Photoactive, a podcast about photography and technology. I'm Kirk McElhearn.
And I'm Jeff Carlson.
So it was the summer solstice this week, the longest day of the year. And it was a long day. It was quite hot here in the UK. And I was watching on the news all the people who went to Stonehenge for sunrise. Now, usually if you go to Stonehenge, there's like I don't want to say a fence around the stones, but like one of the, what would you call it, with poles and like a string hanging around to keep you can't get too close to it.
Little barrier.
Yeah, a little barrier. And you can get close at certain times. They have like an hour a day when you pay more and small groups can get close. But here on the summer solstice, maybe the winter solstice, they let everyone go around the stones. And they were showing this. And there was probably, I don't know, 1,000, 2,000 people all there to get the sunrise. And sunrise was like 4:45 in the morning. So it was really early. And, you know, I've been to Stonehenge a couple of times and I've shown pictures here. And I keep saying I want to go back because it's one of those tourist destinations that it's unique. It's not like, I don't know, you go to Venice and it's all Venice-y and everything looks like that. You know what I mean? You're laughing. You know,
I do. Yes. No. I know exactly what you mean.
It's almost natural, right? It's you make your own experience in a place like that. And anyway, summer is a good time for traveling. And your idea for our topic today was to talk about traveling and what type of photo gear you need. And since I don't travel, I'm going to kind of let you do most of the talking with me going, yep, and asking questions every now and then.
Perfect. Well, actually, I think you will end up having more to say, at least based on sort of what I'm thinking.
I always have something to say.
Partially because of the cameras that you have. So, like, I would say you're actually primed for travel. You just don't quite have a plan for that yet.
Yeah.
So who knows? Maybe by the end of this episode, you will be halfway out the door off to some extravagant location.
Yeah.
So
we'll see.
I'm sure that's exactly how this will happen.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I did a lot of traveling in my 20s. I traveled all over Europe. I hitchhiked through France for a year. I just don't have the bug anymore, especially because travel has become like, I went to Barcelona, January 1985, so it was off season. It wasn't crowded. It was nice. You can walk around, you see things. Now you go to Barcelona, there's cruise ships docked, and they just had protests in Spain about tourists, and there's too many tourists. Everyone wanting to get the Instagram and the TikTok stuff, and it's changed tourism into something that is, I don't even know how to say it. It's people checking off little boxes to prove that they've been someplace that don't really care that they're there.
Yeah. It's like you're hunting and you are getting – what's a good way? I think we actually talked about this specific thing once, but of course I'm too lazy to go back and listen to our episodes. But
it's a lot of work. We have 188 episodes before this one, so that's a lot of work.
That is a lot of work. So it's more like – you are not going to a location because you want to experience the culture, you want to experience the food and the people and that. It's, all right, I've done this. It's a trophy.
Yeah.
It's like a trophy thing.
Yeah.
I got a picture of the Eiffel Tower. I got a picture of this. I am standing in front of a building and making it look like I'm holding it in my hands. Like all of that really, really good stuff that was original once a long time ago. Long time ago.
And that you see over and over on social media, on Instagram and TikTok and everything else.
Yeah. So what I was thinking about for this episode really is just some of the practical aspects, because when I think about traveling and when I think about photography, I have always been the guy that I want to make sure I have all the equipment that I need. And so I end up taking a lot. I take a camera, I've got a couple of lenses, I've got a tripod, all of that.
I just want to put in parentheses here. We're going to put a link in the show notes to that episode a couple of years ago where you have a photo of everything you took to Sweden, was it?
No, that was
Florence?
France and Italy.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
France and Italy trip. Yeah. That will continually come up in our podcast.
Exactly.
But honestly, like, it's true. Like, I took a lot of stuff, and I felt like it was worth it because I was partially going not just on vacation, but it was a good opportunity for me to get some good photographic experiences, like going to see the Colosseum in Rome at sunrise, getting up super early to take photos of the Eiffel Tower at sunrise. Like those sorts of things demanded more than just like a walking around camera. And so that was the trade-off that I was happy to make.
But were these trophy photos?
They were kind of trophy photos, but I want to say this is a good distinction, actually. I'm glad you brought this up because the way I think of trophy photos now is it's basically Instagrammable.
Right.
Here I am standing in front of this thing, hurrah. What these were, I guess you could say that these were trophy photos, but they were photos that required some work. So you had to get up at that time of year, like 3:45 in the morning, get a Uber to get you to the I'm forgetting the name of the area that's behind the Eiffel Tower.
Trocadero,
yes. And so like it takes work to do that and also to know like when the sunrise is coming up, a tripod to set that up. Like there was more to it. So even though, it was a trophy picture of the Eiffel Tower, it was a more contemplated, planned, deliberate shot rather than just, oh, look, I was here. And so I think, especially for photographers who want to go to a place like this, that makes a lot of sense. But what I'm talking about today really is that travel sense of you're just going to go somewhere and this isn't necessarily a photographic trip, but you want to take photos.
I think that's a good distinction because photographers do plan photographic trips. And it's not trophy photos, but let's say you've got a list. You've got a to-do list of things you want to see because you've been there before and you know it's attractive, or you've seen photos and you know it's attractive. So that's your Colosseum, your Eiffel Tower, the balcony in Florence over the city, things like that. And these are things that you know could look good in your photos. But what I've always liked about traveling, back in the day, I'm old, pre-Instagram, pre-social media, was going someplace and wandering around and letting Kismet show me interesting things, which in France generally turn to be bakeries and cafes. Those are the most interesting things when you're wandering around. But even
sounds amazing.
Small towns and smaller cities, you know, I've wandered around Nice, Aix-en-Provence, cities like that, when there aren't tourists, and you discover really nice things, and it's not crowded, and you see what life is really like. And people don't have this mask on for tourists usually.
Yes, exactly. And that's a completely different experience, and I think one that more people should have. I mean, this borders a little bit on street photography, but I don't want to actually call it that because I think street photography is also its own separate beast. Like there's some overlap here. But
this is more holiday photography, vacation photography is what you would call it.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah.
And I don't think there's anything negative about that.
No, I would say that would be quality vacation photography, if that makes sense.
Right.
Like you are a photographer, you want to make good pictures, but you don't necessarily want to do sunsets and sunrises and setups and all of that. You just want to go and you want to find the light on a great building or reflected off of glass, or you see like an interesting person, that sort of thing. And the way to do that, I am increasingly convinced, and I know a lot of people will probably think, oh, Jeff, you're finally seeing the light. But the way to do that is to, go small, go portable. And we talked about this in an earlier episode. One of the trips that I took a couple of years ago, I went to New York City and Washington, D.C., and I made, for me, the radical decision to just bring my little X100V Fuji camera. Fixed lens, tiny, like that was it. And I thought that I was going to be miserable, and I actually enjoyed it a lot.
And you enjoy it for a couple of reasons. First of all, you don't have to have a camera bag. You don't have to root around to change lenses. The constraint of a small camera with a fixed lens makes you think in a different way. When I walk around with one of my two cameras, which are both fixed lens cameras, I'm looking at the world with that frame in mind, right? With that focal length in mind. And after you've walked around for a day and you've been looking through the viewfinder and taking photos, you sort of, it clicks in your mind, if you've been taking enough photos for long enough, that you can see things and know how they're going to fit in the frame.
Actually, this brings up a really good distinction that on one side you have a photo that you have in mind and you want to bring the gear that will catch that photo. So that's your sunset, that's your sunrise, that's your big photo get. The location that you've seen photographers make epic shots of, and you hope that the conditions will be right and the timing will be right, and all of those things can be amazing. Sometimes they're not. But you have that photo in mind. On the other side of it is you just have a general location in mind. So you're going to bring a camera that will work in all sorts of situations. So instead of equipping yourself for a photo, you're equipping yourself for the experience to see what comes up.
When you're equipping yourself for a photo, you may need to have a lens of a specific focal length because you've already visualized how it looks in the way other photographers have taken it. And you know you need, I don't know, a 90 millimeter lens to get the same look. And then that means you can't have a fixed lens camera. And that means you have a big bulky 90 millimeter lens and you've got a camera bag. And then you get into the whole photographer thing. Rather than, I like the idea, the concept of the flâneur. Flâner means wandering. I think it was Baudelaire who first brought this idea up. And you've seen them in Paris, people just wandering along the sides of the Seine, right? Looking at the bookstalls and that. And it's it's this feeling of unforced activity, right? You're going where you go and you get influence and you turn the corner when you cross the street. And that kind of photography is more interesting because you discover things that you never expected to see. You probably remember them more because, okay, Eiffel Tower, I've checked it off. I've got the trophy photo in quotes, and I'll show it to my friends because they know what it is. But the experience for you isn't the same as turning around a corner and maybe, finding a cafe or someone walking out of a bakery with a baguette and grabbing a quick photo and that sort of thing. You don't have the experience of making a photo. You have the experience of taking a photo.
And I would also argue that as a photographer, you have a little bit of a leg up in terms of this type of travel because you are equipped to take pictures of things, but you are also activating that photographer's brain of looking for things.
Right.
And not just looking, hey, here's a place that I've never been before. Here are some stalls that might have some things that I would be interested in buying, or a restaurant with food that I've never had. But you are looking and absorbing an area more because you're on the hunt for something that looks interesting. You're on the hunt for light and shadow and all those little moments that come up, or maybe they don't, but even so, you're getting more out of the experience, even if you're not like, oh, I got the best picture I've ever taken. Well, maybe not, but you had a much better time getting there.
And if you're in Paris, you can always stop at Bertillon to get some of the best ice cream in the world. And for me, if I'm wandering around someplace, that's the goal I want to have. And I'll find what there is that's interesting on the way to that goal. Did you go to Bertillon in Paris?
We did not make it to Bertillon because of just schedule didn't work out.
Okay.
We were like geographically not – it was not geographically convenient to get there. And
it's 5 minutes from Notre Dame.
Yeah, I know.
It's
based on what we were doing, we couldn't make it. But the important thing is there's reason to go back.
Exactly.
And that
Exactly.
See?
Yeah. And you can,
and I will know what camera to bring with me.
And you can find these things. So there's two ways to travel. So I'm old enough to remember wandering around Europe. I left the U.S. in 1984. The first year I spent as I said, hitchhiking France, going to a dozen countries in Europe in that year with really no information about what there was to see. The standard guidebook was the Let's Go guide back then. I don't know if that still exists. Lonely Planet's a British one that's popular now, but Let's Go was an American guide. You'd see the American tourists walking around the cities with their Let's Go guide, and everyone would go to the same places because they've all got the same guide and they can't find anything else. But you didn't have a whole list of things. Okay, you've seen some photos of the Eiffel Tower, etc., right? You're going to go there, but you didn't have a whole list of things. So touristing, I would say, was so much different back then that it was more about wandering for most people. And now, would anyone go any place without spending their time on whatever Maps app and marking down all the places they have to see, which takes, I want to say it takes all the fun out of it. It takes all the surprise out of it. Yes, you want to see the Eiffel Tower. You want to go up to that balcony over Florence. There are things that are really worth seeing. You want to go to Venice, although I think it's great that the Venetians have protested against Jeff Bezos' wedding so much that they've decided to move it. I don't know if they're still doing it in Venice or moving it someplace else, but they unfurled a huge banner. We're recording this on June 24th, and I think it was yesterday. They unfurled a huge banner in San Marcos Place, whatever it's called. I think that's really good, this kind of reaction. But traveling for me has always been about discovering things, not looking for things.
So a question for you. When you were traveling, did you have a camera? Were you a quote-unquote photographer then? No. Okay, so that was just you wandering.
Yeah, it was just me wandering. And often just me alone with a backpack, hitchhiking or taking a train or something like that. Yeah. Going to places I'd heard about Zermatt. I'd never been there. I knew there was a mountain. And then, if you've ever been to Zermatt, you get a heck of a shock when you get there. It's quite impressive. And I do wish I had a camera back then. Yeah. But that would have been a film camera with the expensive film. And, that's another story.
Yeah, well, that's where I was going with, was wondering if you would have been carrying lots of rolls of film, because now, of course, we don't have to do film, although a lot of people are now getting into film. And so another side of this is not just having a small compact camera, but, an essential travel thing now is to make sure you have chargers, like little battery banks,
or extra batteries for your camera as well.
Well, exactly. I would say even just a few years ago, I would make sure that I had like 4 or 5 batteries for my camera. Yeah. And I don't know that I would bring that many now, because my cameras are now powered by USB-C. So as long as you have a little battery bank, or medium-sized battery bank that can plug into that,
or if you've rented a car,
you plug in your camera and recharge it there. Yeah. I mean, I don't think I'll go anywhere without at least one extra battery, because I'm not completely insane. But you plug in your camera while you're having lunch and it charges up. That is I would say that is a new necessary thing that you have to take with you, that before you would think of having – I mean, I have little, battery chargers, and I got one that will hold 2 batteries that plugs into USB, but it's old USB-A, and – things have really changed for the better in that sense.
With USB-C,
which is really nice.
Because now, for example, let's say you bring 2 batteries for your Fujifilm camera, you charge one in the camera, you take it out and you put the other one in the camera, you use that as the charger. And that's one less device and one less cable that you need to bring.
Exactly. And even I don't have any of these, but there are now batteries that you can get, and the batteries have a USB-C port. So all you do is you plug the battery into a USB-C cable that's connected to a battery bank or a power plug, and you just charge that, so you don't have to have yet another accessory to take with you. Yep. Which again,
I will remind all the listeners about that episode a few years ago of your trip to Paris, and to look at the photo of all the accessories that were in that photo. It was really something. I mean, it was like a camera store.
Go to our show notes; we'll have it there.
Yeah. Okay, but so what if you don't even want to bring a camera? What if you just use your pocket computer slab thingy that has a camera in it?
I refute your characterization, because I don't think you can go anywhere and not bring a camera. because of the camera that's in your little
by camera,
pocket slab.
I meant the one that you put,
I know.
you know, a real camera, not the, you know, computer slab.
You know what? That is absolutely realistically possible to do. My wife, for example, she went on a trip this summer to Italy and Slovenia with the choir that she sings with. And she did not want to be burdened down with any more than she had to. And because she's in a choir, like there was costume and like shoes you have to bring and things add up quickly.
Are there special choir shoes?
Well, they had to wear like black shoes that are comfortable enough to stand in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So matching clothes. Okay. I thought maybe it was like insulated choir shoes so the music doesn't reverberate from their feet to the stage, something like that. Yeah.
No, I think you're overthinking it, but such a thing probably exists, right? And so what she's doing is she is just walking around with her iPhone 13 Pro, which is now, 4 years old, 3 years old. And it is not the best iPhone camera you can get right now, but is still a very good iPhone camera. And she's getting great pictures of the insides of some of these cathedrals that they're singing at. I mean, my goodness, the beauty that's in Italy. Oh my gosh. But she is not looking to take the sort of intentional photos that, say, I would want to go take and bring a tripod and all that. But she's also not just taking snapshots of, oh, look where I am. The secret about us is that I am the photographer. I think she has a better eye than I do.
You've mentioned this several times, yeah.
Yeah. Some of the pictures that she sent back are just stunning. And it doesn't matter that she didn't bring a standalone camera, a traditional camera, because what she has is enough to get the shot that she wanted to see. And that's kind of the important thing.
If you remember when the iPhone 13 was released, it had the best iPhone camera ever. It did. That only lasted for 1 year.
I can't imagine.
And so that was the last one that was only 12 megapixels. But I think the night mode was really improved on the 13 because the 14 is when they went to 48 megapixels.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
But it was the best iPhone camera ever. I remember watching them presentation about it.
I shouldn't laugh so hard because this is the easy joke that you bring up every time, and yet it makes me laugh every single time.
It's true. It's every year. It's the best iPhone ever, the best iPhone camera
ever. It's amazing.
It's magical. It's wonderful.
I mean, what a run of consistency that every year it's the best ever.
You know,
amazing.
I look back when I got my cat Titus, it was December 2013. And I think I had an iPhone 4S or an iPhone 5. And man, those photos are bad. If there's light, it's okay. Some of the photos were really good in daylight.
Yeah.
But anything where it's a little bit dark indoors, they were bad. They were blurry, the grainy, the ISO was terrible. And comparing it to what you can do now, even like a 13 or a 12 or something a few years ago, it's a huge difference. And this is a dozen years ago. We've gotten to the point, yes, that slab of glass and metal in your pocket is a quite serviceable camera. And maybe you don't need to take another camera with you, not just your wife, but you as a photographer. You could make this a constraint to not bring a real camera. You would have this itch for the first couple of days, kind of withdrawal, but then you'd get used to it.
Okay, that almost like sounds like fighting words. Like a little shiver ran up my spine. I was like, well, not me. I wouldn't do that because I have real cameras. But you know what? There's another advantage to this in that everybody is going to have a phone. And you would think, well, that's kind of a disadvantage because when you go traveling now, everybody has a phone. Everybody's taking pictures. It's kind of obnoxious. But it also means that you're not going to stand out as a quote-unquote photographer. You're not going to be the person who's possibly, looking rude or being intrusive because everybody else is doing that. I mean, that's actually one of the nice things about going to a touristy place, even like here in Seattle, going to Pike Place Market. It's a little easier to take photos with a phone or regular cameras because everybody is there taking photos. And so, you can blend in a little bit more, and I think that helps you also look for photos and not worry, am I either being too obnoxious or, am I a target for thievery, things like that, because you're sort of in with the pack and you're doing the things. It's just you, because you're a photographer and you have a better eye, you're going to make better pictures than a lot of those people. So
it makes me realize that, go back 10 years, and if you were standing there with your phone taking a picture, people would be suspicious of you.
Yeah.
It's only in the past 6 or 8 years that it's become relatively common, and now that it's become so common that, like, you see a video of a concert and everyone's got their phone up filming it. They're everywhere. We've gone from one extreme to another. When I first came to the UK, I bought one of those little point-and-shoot Panasonic cameras. I got some excellent pictures. I think it might have been 8 megapixels or whatever. It wasn't, a fancy. But I got some excellent pictures. But I did feel that I was I was marked as a tourist when I was doing that, because tourists have that camera, right? It wasn't a professional camera. It was a tourist camera. Now with a phone, it's just like people take photos all the time. And especially in touristy areas, you just take your phone out and no one cares. Yeah. Do be careful about phone thievery, as you say.
Right.
One good thing to be is, I've mentioned my Peak Design case that I have for my iPhone, and you can put a Peak Design wrist strap on it. So if you're walking around with your phone, you can do that and prevent people from stealing it.
One thing we haven't really talked about, and I'm actually glad about it, we haven't really talked about resolution or whether or not you're getting full frame resolution, like all of that, because it's fine to think that, for example, if you were to take your Leica out, you would get excellent results because it has a better sensor and all of that stuff. But that is not the primary reason that you would take your Leica out for something like this. It would be because it's small, it's compact, it's easy to carry around.
Well,
and
compared to the X100 series, it's large, but yes.
Sure. But still.
But it's also a question of familiarity, right?
Mm-hmm.
You learn to be one with your camera over time, right? But yes, I would say resolution is less of an issue. And we've talked about AI and how you can use super resolution. I mean, the Beatles wrote a song about that, didn't they? You say you want a resolution. Wasn't that the Beatles song?
They were so ahead of their time. It was amazing.
Exactly. Do you know the story about how the Beatles' success funded the development of the CAT scanner?
No.
EMI used their profits from selling Beatles albums. I'm not kidding. We'll put a link in the show notes about this. They used the profits that they made from selling the Beatles albums to develop the first CAT scan.
Wow.
Because EMI was not just a music company. They were a general electronics company.
Yeah.
Someone had the idea for this product, and the Beatles were, say you want a resolution, so they got a higher resolution CAT scan.
That's great. That's sort of like we would never have Monty Python and the Holy Grail if it wasn't for Led Zeppelin.
Exactly. And we would never have Led Zeppelin if it wasn't for Chuck Berry.
Wow.
It's turtles all the way down, right?
Should
we do snapshots?
I think we should do snapshots. Do you have a snapshot today?
I do, and it's actually quite appropriate.
Well, why don't you go first then?
Okay. So if you're traveling around with an iPhone and you lose the iPhone, it has this Find My tracking, and you can track your iPhone if you've forgotten it, lost, or if it's stolen. If you're traveling with a normal camera, you don't have such an option. You can get an AirTag and stick it on the camera, but that doesn't always work. I have this little Nomad card, which is a Find My compatible card. It's the size of a credit card, about 1.5 times the thickness of a credit card. You could slip this in a camera bag or in a camera case right next to a camera, and it works with the Find My system. Now, a number of companies make little cards like this, but most of them, they come with a battery that they say lasts for 2 or 3 years. Then you have to throw it out and buy a new one. This charges via a Qi charger. Ooh. I bought this a little more than a year ago, and the first time I had to charge it was a couple of weeks ago. So it looks like you're getting a year's use. And I have this little wallet, this little tiny wallet that's credit card size, because who carries cash anymore? And I have this in my wallet. So let's see, I've got the website open here. It is 35 pounds, I think $35, and it's small enough to fit inside any kind of case, camera bag, or anything you'd want. So it's called the Nomad Tracking Card. That's all.
That's cool, because one of the frustrations of the AirTags is that they are small, but when you're talking about putting them onto a camera or something,
they're kind of thick.
They're bulbous, and so it's hard to find a good place for them.
The word of the day is bulbous. Okay.
Bulbous, yes.
Okay. What's your snapshot, Jeff?
My snapshot actually has nothing to do with what we were talking about today, but it's still kind of cool. For a work thing, I needed to get a new set of microphones, and the ones that I had, which I think may have been a snapshot at one point, I had like these little portable Rode microphones, but they're really designed to work with a traditional camera. What it did not work with is an iPhone. Like there was no way you could just plug it directly into your iPhone so that whatever your phone is recording, you'd get that audio. So I bought these. These are the DJI Mic Mini. And first of all, I think inspired by AirPods, they come in a little case that charges as you store them, which is really nice. But they are tiny. I have a transmitter and 2 microphones. But the microphones, they are super tiny. They've got a little clip. They have a little magnet attachment so you can stick it under your shirt. And the transmitter itself has a little dongle that you can plug into your phone, and it's a USB-C. And really, that's sort of all there is. There's a little control. You can adjust the gain, but it's not nearly as complicated as some other DJI microphones and things like that. Like if you want real professional usage, it has noise cancellation, active noise cancellation. It can store some of the audio. It's just super slick, and it was only like about $140 for this little package. So if you need to record audio, this is a really good way to do it, and it's not big and bulky.
DJI is this company that makes drones, right?
Yeah. Same one.
I didn't know they made microphones.
They've pushed into that market, I think, maybe just over the last like 3 years or so. And
it's because it's the TikTok market.
Yeah. Well, and for the thing that I had to record, okay, this is gonna serve me up as like another thing from an old guy. There's a thing in TikTok where they take a little microphone like this and they hold it like a regular microphone, and you like pass it back and forth.
Yeah.
There's no reason for you to hold this and talk into it because it's a lav mic, basically.
It's really weird on TikTok, the number of people that use lavalier microphones and hold it up to their mouth instead of just pinning it on a shirt or something. They just don't understand how it works.
It's a weird like visual thing, trendy thing, and I am going to try not to give into that because, look, it's designed to work in a certain way. Let it do that, and then you can use your hands. But anyway, mini rant over.
Okay, so that's enough for this episode. If anyone's taking holiday photos and limiting themselves to a single camera, drop a message in our Facebook group, and we will definitely... And you will definitely see that photo of Jeff's trip to Paris and Rome in the show notes. So you definitely check it out. Until next time, Jeff.
Until next time.
Thanks for listening to Photoactive. You can find show notes, including any photos we discuss in this episode, at photoactive.co. That's photoactive.co. We couldn't afford the M. You can join our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/PhotoActiveCast. That's PhotoActiveCast in one word. You can subscribe to Photoactive in your favorite podcast app or on Apple Podcasts. See the links on our website. And think about leaving us a rating or review in iTunes or in your podcast.